Shalom and welcome to Shikul Da'at. I'm Rabbi Josh Rose. The month of Elul begins tonight. That means we are exactly 1 month away from Rosh Hashanah. Hard to believe. So our minds and our hearts turn to Teshuvah, the process of self-repair and course correction towards holy and purposeful living. This is the time to intensify our introspection, to examine our behavior, and take a really good look inside. Now is the time to reconnect in relationships that we didn't mean to neglect, and to repair those that we've broken with our deeds or our words. Of course, we should do this all the time. Each moment holds an infinity of possibilities for our recreation, but in the month of Elul, we really put our back into our living. There are 40 days between the first of Elul and Yom Kippur. It was on Yom Kippur that Moshe emerged with the Luchot, the tablets of the 10 Commandments. The Torah tells us that he was up there for 40 days. So that means that he headed up to Sinai on the first of Elul. So what is the connection between Yom Kippur and the tablets and Elul? Remember that these are the second set of tablets. The first were shattered when Moses threw them to the ground upon seeing that the Israelites had worshipped the golden calf. So God's forgiveness of this sin and the second chance of the new tablets come together on Yom Kippur. So we screwed up. We regretted it, and then we picked up and got back to where we were supposed to be going all along, right? Well, that's one model of Teshuvah. But I want to share with you something else. The extraordinary Kotzker Rebbe once again has a powerful teaching to deepen our understanding. I'm going to read the whole paragraph of his teaching, and then we'll go back over it to tease out its implications. He wrote, "The secret of Teshuvah is, as is said in the Babylonian Talmud, quote, at the beginning was darkness, and afterward light," end quote. A person cannot truly understand words of Torah unless he has stumbled in them first. If we have not stumbled, we would not have renewal. Error leads to a broken heart, the breaking of the vessels, the breaking of the tablets, and only then can Torah be renewed. And then he quotes the prophet Isaiah, Ya'azov rasha darko ve'esh aven machshavotav. Let the wicked person leave his path, the sinful man leave his thoughts. So, what does he have in mind here? Let's start where he does. The secret of Teshuvah is, as is said in the Babylonian Talmud, he begins, at the beginning was darkness and afterward light. Okay, so that's how the Kotzker's teaching starts. So we have to take a moment to unveil this because it comes as part of a very strange conversation in the Talmud, this bit that he's quoting. And here's the setup for the Talmudic piece quoted by the Kotzker. Rav Zera approaches his master, Rav Yehudah. We're in the 3rd century BCE, by the way. He sees that Yehudah is in an expansive mood, and so he understands he can ask anything in the world, and his master, Yehudah, will give him an answer. He begins bafflingly with the question, why do goats walk in front of the flock and then ewes follow? Strange question to start with, certainly, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but in any event, Yehudah answers, it is just as it was in the creation of the world, which at first was dark and then light. So, that's the quote that the Kotzker opens up his teaching with, in his teaching about Teshuvah. For the Kotzker, this idea becomes the frame that helps us understand the rest of his teaching. So let's leave behind the Talmudic quote for a moment and go back to the Kotzker. He says, a person cannot discover words of Torah unless he has stumbled in them first. If we have not stumbled, we would not have renewal. Okay, so he's using this seemingly random quotation from the Talmud, from Rav Yehudah, to set up this trajectory from dark to light, just like the Torah tells us that there was darkness before light was created in the Genesis creation story. The Kotzker says that at first we wander in darkness by making mistakes, by stumbling, and only then can we truly understand. The Kotzker's teaching is so beautifully hopeful, because he says that now that you have reckoned with the mistakes you've made, and only now can you begin to heal. The Israelites could not receive the Torah until they had stumbled terribly, and it's the same for us. This is actually a radical reworking of the concept of Teshuvah, because as I mentioned at the beginning, we usually think of it as follows. We were on the right path, we stepped off it, we stumbled, and now we have to get back to that path and everything will be okay. The Kotzker seems to be offering a different model, that we have to stumble along the wrong path before we can even see where the right path is. Now, if we go back into the Talmudic passage, we'll see that the Kotzker is after something even deeper and more challenging. We notice that the conversation between Rav Zeir and Yehudah was odd. Why does Yehudah respond to an ordinary question about goats, after all, by restating what's obvious from the Torah about darkness preceding light in creation? Well, if we back up on the page of Talmud, which is Shabbat 77b, for those who are curious to look it up. If you look back on that page, you'll see that previously Yehudah, Zeir's master, quotes his own master, Rav, as saying, Kol ma shebara HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olamo lo bara devar echad levatala, which means, of all that the Holy One created in the world, God did not create anything without purpose. He then continues to list seemingly purposeless creatures, insects, and the like, and draws a lesson of each one about their existence. This, then, is the passage that leads up to the conversation where we tuned in which Rav Zeir asks about the goats. So listen again to the conversation, but this time keeping in mind the idea that every single thing in existence was created for a reason. So here's the quote. Why do goats walk in front of the flock and then ewes follow? It is just as it was in the creation of the world, says Yehudah, which at first was dark and then light followed. So it sounds different this time, because first of all, the goat question is no longer a goat question. It's a question that Rav Zeir knows must contain some deeper truth. What I love about this seemingly random question, really, if you could ask the greatest teacher you know anything, would you ask why a dog's nose is always wet? But I think the Talmud is teaching us that everything in the world is part of some profound meaning. All of it points to a teaching for us. All of it leads back to Teshuvah. Everything is therefore an opportunity for self-discovery. There's no dimension of existence that is without meaning, nothing from which we cannot learn. Second, though, and even more profoundly, Yehudah teaches that darkness serves a purpose in and of itself. It is not that the real story is the light and the darkness was just a setup for the light's creation. The darkness was created for a purpose. Here's where the Kotzker's teaching becomes so challenging and rich. The Kotzker, I think, is drawing out the implications of this bit of Talmud. Level 1 of the Kotzker's teaching was that all mistakes are part of a larger resolution into Teshuvah, and that those mistakes were part of your growth and my growth. Now he leans into this and is emphasizing that the difficulty you passed through had to be that way. It was necessary. It wasn't an error. It wasn't outside the plan. It wasn't a flaw that you have to cast away with embarrassment or resentment. It was created, like all things, for a purpose. Now, I'm not sure I know what to do with some of the implications of this teaching. For those who have suffered trauma or abuse, for example, we cannot propose this teaching or any that tries to make the hurt okay. We can only stand with the people we love and respond and help when we are needed. But I think that this teaching can also heal. But to let it to lead us to Teshuvah, we have to change our own view of our past. We have to first let go of self-loathing. Now, this is not the same as self-critique. The ability to evaluate ourselves and to learn and make judgments about our behavior is essential to a life of dignity, freedom, and purpose. But we have to do this with compassion. And we have to understand that if we take the Kotzker's view, we had to make these mistakes. So that, I think, is the challenge for us personally. That's where it begins. The greater challenge, though, is this. Can you see the deeds of others in that same light? Is there rage or anger or judgment at another that is blocking your path to Teshuvah, preventing you from emerging more whole? Not that whatever was done should have been done. Not that it was right. Keep in mind that others are required to apologize and to make amends when they have wronged us. That's part of their Teshuvah. But can you see it as something that in your life was part of the path you had to walk to become the person with the understanding and the wisdom that you now have? That is, it had to be. It is just as it was in the creation of the world, which was at first dark and then light. I offer these teachings of Rav Yehudah and of the Kotzker in hopes that they might help us give some insight and courage in our own work of Teshuvah. May our own repair and rectification be part of the Teshuvah of the Jewish people and of the whole world. Thank you so much for listening, and have a Shabbat Shalom.